Welcome to African Canadian Voice today, and today we're coming to you with a new show from Ugandan Dimension, and today we're talking to Dr. Immaculate Namukasa. Dr. Immaculate Namukasa is a professor at the University of Western Ontario School of Education, and today she's going to give us a very good window to the Ugandan culture, and with her is Miss Immaculate Sekalo. Welcome to our show. Both of you, we're very happy to have you on our show, and we're really impressed by the outfit you have wearing today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Tess, and thank you for this opportunity to tell you about myself and my mom, Mrs. Sekalo, and especially about the African culture, which is I still call my own culture and my mom's culture and my family's culture. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
So, as you mentioned, I do work with the university in town here as a professor in education. And my education, part of it is from Africa, where I was born, and I went to school up to my master's degree and joined the University of Alberta, where I got my doctoral degree, and then got the job in London, and then moved here in London, and I've since established my family and my professional life in London with a connection to the communities that I've connected to here, the communities in schools, the communities, culture communities, immigrant communities, science and math education communities. So now this is home for me.
That's good. I know that you are very much involved with the African Canadian Federation as a past board member, and you helped the organization move in its growth and the expansion. And along with that, also you were active in expanding the cultural aspect of Africa in different settings and situations and events. Could you tell us a little bit more of that, about that?
So for me, the culture connection, and I guess I'm going to speak about it as for myself, but I think I share it with many people that come from communities where culture is at the forefront, culture, traditions, communities, being with people. So the country that I come from happens to be a country where there's several tribes. So your identity in terms of your tribal identity, your community identity, your culture and the way you do things, the foods you eat, being what grounds you, that's where I get my connection to culture. And so would many several people from places where culture is at the forefront. But I also found support in culture. Being an immigrant with most of the family members living back at home. Now I'm lucky that my mom is visiting me here, and I am here with my closer family. But the culture connection is the connection back to what you grew up with, what you grew up seeing, what you grew up doing, the activities you grew up enjoying. So I go back to that for strength and inspiration, as well as connecting to others. And I feel like in all communities we have culture, and culture is part of our identities and who we are. So hence when I go back to Africa, I always see culture in people, but also culture in artifacts, culture in items. Some of the items are currently used, some of the items are also marketed in stores in Canada, but when I see an item that for me bears the African culture, so for me my culture is Ugandan, is of my tribe Uganda, but I see it as an African culture or culture of people who are cultured. So whenever I see something that represents culture as an artifact, I carry it to tell stories with it and to share with children about the culture.
Dr. Immaculate, could you tell us a little more about the Ugandan community in here?
Yes. So the Ugandan community in London, Ontario, is a tight community. It's a small community. So when I came in from the west, from University of Alberta to here, the community here was smaller than the community there. But even then, I managed to get connected to a few families. So the community here is in terms of family. we keep in close touch. There's different generations of families. So there are those that are having young kids, they're raising kids now. There are those whose kids have grown out of their houses, the recently retired parents, and then there are students coming in to study. Now we do try to keep in touch and support each other.
So that's how we keep the culture so vibrant and alive in terms of the community in here, you have in here.
Being in close touch with other families, but also knowing that these families belong to other communities, communities of that they connect with at their work, professional communities, being part of their neighborhoods, communities that they connect to through the schools of their children, which are different. Our kids don't go to the same kids, but still touching base once in a while. That's how we keep our kids knowing part of their identities. The kids want to like to say that they're half Ugandan, because they believe their Canadian identity is much broader than the Ugandan, but we still want them to know that there's that part of their community in addition to all the other communities that they do belong to.
It was great learning about the Ugandan community, and when we come back we'll continue on the other aspects of the Ugandan culture. I cannot resist asking you about what your mom is dressing, this beautiful dress. Could you explain that to us? And it's so colorful and so beautiful. So I'm going
to let my mom tell you in Uganda, and then I'll translate about this. What in Canada would call a costume, but currently in Africa it's a way of clothing. It's a way of clothing on cultural functions. And when I grew up, my mom, this is what she wore.
I see.
Yes.
mu Uganda te eggwanga ery'Abaganda Buganda Buganda province bebambala olugoye tulwambala okuva mu myaka awo ng'omuntu akuze atuuse okubeera mu bufumbo omufumbo married n'alwambala paka bukadde naye lwe lugoye lwe twambalira ddala.
So my mom says this is a clothing that she began to wear when she was considered a young woman, who was married and beginning a family life. Then she transitioned from dresses to wearing, it's called a gomesi. So the gomesi basically has a belt, and the belt can be lengthy depending on fashion. The fashion now is that it will go down and touch a little lower than her knees, but they've also been moments where it's a midi belt. But the dress has always been the long dress that covers the feet, the wide raised shoulders, the longer arms. It's usually accessorized with jewelry and buttons, and there's more to it. Sometimes there's laces around it, depending on what's fashion. There is a lace showing at the back. So it's called a gomesi, and it represents several cultural clothing for women in Uganda, which has 52 tribes. So the other tribes, the Banyankole, the Baganda, the Bachiga, would wear long dresses. They would have plenty of clothing in the cloth itself, that if you opened it up, it's as wide as linen. It could easily be used to be a comfort blanket for the children, the one she's not wearing, or a blanket. So I remember myself being covered under this warm clothing. So I think it's I see it myself. I don't know if she would say that. But so she began wearing this when she became a young woman, and she's wore it since then. She's worn other clothings, but they equally long, maxi length, and she wears those when she comes to Canada. So if she wasn't dressed for this occasion, you'd find her in a dress equally decent, but a dress that another person could wear and go to teach. Yes.
So this is basically the everyday dress she wears in Uganda, and in terms of everyday situation? Are there any different clothing that she wears, or is there variation of this in the weddings and other special events, for example?
So I think it's safe to assume, and we can ask her,
okay,
that this is all she's worn. So when you're in Uganda, bobera mu Uganda mama, oyambala kungoye endala oba luno lwobeeramu?
Nyambala kungoye endala ennyangungu, engoye ennyangu nga ebitengi biteeteeyi bwetyo, naye luno lwe lugoye olusinga obukulu mukazi omuganda lwayambala bw'oba mukolo oba.
So she's emphasized that a Mugandan woman, which is a name for a tribe, a Baganda tribe that speak Luganda. She's saying that a woman who is of that tribe, this is the dress they wear on occasions and at home. She has varied it since I left. I guess times have changed, and she wears some dresses as well. And I've only seen her in dresses that go past the mid. It has to be a long dress. It has to have sleeves on. And it has to be colorful.
Colorful, yeah.
Yeah, so it has to be a spring colored dress, I would say.
Yeah.
And traditionally, long time ago, it could have been different. So traditionally, long time ago, it was the back cloth. So I think the material that this cloth is made of represents the trade between India and the Arab world and Africa. So the East African trade continent, the interaction between Africa along the East African coast and the other parts on the Indian Ocean, India, Asia, the trade, and this we can verify with history, involved trading in clothing. So I think everything she's wearing in here was at that moment imported and might easily be found even at the moment still imported in other cultures. Like I think it's not far-fetched to say this linen could be used in India, in Thailand, and I'm going to mention the belt especially. There's some countries that use a belt, a hard belt. Thailand, for sure, their women put on wrap on a belt. So it has relations with the kimono of Japan. So there is a lot of history in terms of the Arab trade history. But prior to that, it was back cloth, and they used to wrap it around their chest. Now back cloth is worn. Back cloth is a bark of a tree that men, in terms of manufacturing, they use tools to I'm going to say to pound, to beat that into a soft cloth and bring it down the tree in as wide a circumference as possible, and then further culture it and form it into a linen. So that has since been referred to as a UNESCO heritage clothing. And that would be what they used to make and before the cotton.
It was quite educating learning about the clothing your mom has, and it's a lot of history and a lot of information inside this beautiful cloth. And we'll take a break now, and we'll come back and continue this. Welcome back to African Canadian Voice. Now, Dr. Immaculate is going to tell us a big surprise of the cultural artifacts specifically related with Ugandan music. Dr. Immaculate, you have quite a collection about musical instruments and what they mean. Please tell us more about this.
Yes, so I'm very excited to show some African music artifacts and dance artifacts, and to tell a story about that African music. So I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I did have, the stuff that I have in my collection here, and the stuff that I've collected from the stores or choirs returning back home after doing their dances. So we do have the drums. So the drums, some of them are made of, they're mostly made out of wood and animal skin. This one would be snake skin, I'm told. And it happens to be drumming very well this morning. I think it's been, the skin is dry. Now some of them would drum better than this, and some of them are simply decorative. The sound is not as deep or as nicely sounding as possible. So this one is common in many countries, but it will be the traditional guitar. This is very decorative, would need to be tuned, but also the sound is not good right now. But the same idea of a string instrument. So there would be string instruments. There would be instruments to accompany the drums, and some of them would have to be tied around the body. Let's say this one particular one is for the leg, tied around the leg.
Oh, you tie it like this?
Yeah, usually the guys, and maybe in some
And
cultures
then they
the
stomp.
girls.
Okay.
And then they're stomping as well as they're dancing, and that would make for the loud, far-reaching sound. Additionally, there are others made from squash. The squash dries out and there's seeds inside. Now this is very organic. If I shake it now, I would realize how organic it is. It's been around for a while. So most of them are decorated. They have rocks or beads inside for making the noise. Several versions, some larger, some smaller. And so we have plenty of those, and this happens to be my collection. And we do have wind instruments as well. The kids, even when in Canada, if you give them a drum, they will drum. Better still, if you teach them how to drum that particular drum, they will have fun making sounds of joy with the drums. And so African music is one rich part of the representation of culture. And when choirs visit us here, when we head back home, that's always a treat to treat yourself to that music of that specific culture. And in Uganda, it will be 52 different dances, and in terms of the tribal language, different music artifacts. These happen to be some of my collections, some of which might not be unique to my tribe or to my country, but I've picked them along the way here in Canada or brought them in from back.
Yeah, you have quite a good collection of drums, and drum being the base of any cultural African performance. It different sounds, different tones, and things like that. It's quite educated to have these different drums in here and all the other things that accompany with that.
So there's a wind instrument here. It's been interesting to the young kids to see how these relate to each other and how some of them are different, even from different continents. Now I'll show you one more. So this is for the dancing. They will tie around either the skin of a cow, which has more fur. So as they dance, it adds to the motion and the movement, and showing you what the art they're doing. So this would be tied around, and again, this is common in most tropical countries.
What about this decorative items in here?
So I'm going to make a detour before I return to the decorative materials and do what you asked me about is the materials that were on the side of the music instrument. So when I go, again, I ask kids, what do you think this is? And then they look at it, and it rolls and it's round. Some of them might say this is a ball. So again, these are balls that I would have played with when I grew up. The kids made them out of this one in particular, banana fibers, and this one too. So out of the same materials from the environment, people would make organic balls. It's really, they would kick it around probably for a day or 2 or 3, and then they would make another one. And some of them, if they're well made, they would be bigger. They would go on for a longer while. So they would throw them, play dodgeball. So that's a ball made by kids for kids, for the sake of playing. And of course, they would make other things. This is something made that is decorative from a baobab tree. But again, this shares the same material as that. So mostly brown organic material. This is also from banana leaves. The banana has a big plant with a big stem, which once the leaf and the stem dries out, it can make lots of stuff from what we see, same as the palm leaves and palm plants. So that's one of those. Now the kids would also make their toys. So So this would be a toy made out of cloth. It could be made again out of wood, fiber, or out of something organic like a cob from the corn, and then they would make a toy, a doll, something to play with. So that's an elephant there. In most cultures, including the culture that is being represented here, people made stuff to use in their home and made with the materials that were readily available to them. So what we see here are decorative items made, and some of them had a function. So I'll talk about them as functional objects to begin with.
Yeah.
So I'll begin with the one at the bottom here. Now, right now, it's a decorative item with a map of Africa made for someone foreign to Dubai and to purchase and take to their home. But it could also be function as a salad bowl.
Yeah.
It would have originally been a soup dish, a dish for gravy, or a dish for food. So these were functional. Some of them were made out of wood, others out of rock, and others out of fiber or squash, which is dried, and they were always decorative, no matter whether they were for use in the house or not. And I'm going to show you a couple more before I move to the decorative one. So we do also have several of these. I'm going to show one proudly that I would have also have made like when I was about 8. Now this is not the real copy of it, but I knew how to make this at about the age of 8 to 10, and I made some and we gave them away. So that's a table mat made out of palm tree fibers split into smaller fibers, dyed with color, natural color again, and made decoratively for use as a table mat or for use as a decoration. Now behind it is the back cloth we talked about that women use, people used to wear as clothing and linen. So it's brown, it's the back of a tree. It's a UNESCO heritage right now because they made cloth back then. Now this one is also the same. Now this is very functional. We use it in this home as a table mat. There's a couple more that come from different countries. I'll show one that was country of origin, I don't know, got this at Chapters in town. It looks exactly like what would have been used in my culture. I don't know what the fibers here are, but they're very natural, strong, similar to banana fibers, and I use it functionally, and I bought it. It still I kept its tag. I bought it at Indigo. So this is still functional. I'm going to go to the baskets. So same here. This one looks like the one I've just shown. Banana fibers, functional. This one is from Africa. I'll pick up the baskets and the mats. So this is a mat. You would spread it out. We have recently seen many of these ones, plastic ones. I'm going to say that origin is the ones we see in the markets today as outdoor mats. Origin is from Indian coast cultures, but this one is from my culture. So my grandma and everyone's grandma would still know how to make this, and if they had time they would make this. Now they get more colorful like the one down there, and the colors again are made from grass or palm tree stuff. And so this is how colorful it is. So made by my own grandmother, who lived up to the age of 94. She still made this after 90. So she would make them and put them together. Some are larger, some are more beautiful.
Dr. Immaculate, thank you very much for giving us this wide explanation and very diverse cultural items in here. And I really thank you, your mom, also for giving us this beautiful outfit to type in and understand the roots and the culture and the meaning of it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being with us. African Canadian Voice will be coming to you with another episode on the next session.